So today we're very excited to have the CEO of a exciting life science company with the R&D research focusing on the treatment of the weird disorders and infectious disease, Revive Therapeutics. And the CEO is Michael Frank. How are you doing, Michael?
Great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Good. Yes, thank you for joining us today. So maybe you can start off by just tell us a bit about your business, a bit of the background of the company.
Sure. So Revive basically is a pharma IP portfolio company. A company started back in, before my time actually, in 2012, as I was working with a number of indications in the depression area to look at repurposing drugs, and then did a lot of R&D in that area. And then it moved in 2015, 2016 timeframe, after doing quite a bit of research, to working with a drug called Bucillamine. Bucillamine is an anti-rheumatic, anti-inflammatory agent that's been used in Japan and South Korea for about 30 years to treat rheumatoid arthritis, has a long safety, efficacy, and Revive at that time looked at that marketplace and ended up repurposing Bucillamine around the 2015, 2016 timeframes for the use to treat gout flares. And it ran a US FDA phase 2 study for gout with Bucillamine. It acquired a lot of the IP patents around it. And it also got approval to do a phase 2 study with cystinuria, which is basically kidney stones. So that was the sort of the core of the company. How it started was repurposing, looking at IP that could be repurposed and then taken to market. And the company started with Bucillamine. After it did the phase 2 studies, it basically shifted focus and moved more, because cannabis was getting very prevalent, and it moved to the cannabis sector. And at that time, it secured IP patents from the University of South Carolina for the use of CBD to treat autoimmune hepatitis, a form of liver disease, and also in ischemia, which is organ failure. And basically what happened was during that tenure, it was looking for very unique applications for CBD in the cannabis sector. It also got some very strong delivery technology from the University of Wisconsin, using shrimp and plant-based formulations to basically look at CBD combined with that to treat skin disorders. So it built a portfolio, had Bucillamine, it had basically stuff from the CBD area, and I got involved back in December with the company, and the company basically, when I took over, shifted much more focus on the pharma sector, and that was our game plan to move that down the path. And we acquired Psilocybin, which is basically had some very unique IP patents around basically Psilocybin, and that whole sector. You heard a lot about the sort of the mushroom sector, but a lot of that work's being done clinically. So we acquired that IP and we moved that to market, and that's a bit of our story right now. Also, I mean, I could add, I guess, sort of maybe jumping through some of your questions, but the key focus right now in the company is we took Bucillamine, where we have a lot of data, a lot of efficacy, and we basically are looking to attack the sort of infectious disease marketplace, because we have a lot of data to support what is done with gout, and we believe it's going to be basically a very viable option in terms of a treatment. So we are filing our IND right now to do a phase 3 study with the FDA around Bucillamine and infectious diseases.
Well, very exciting. There's quite a few things going at the same time. Maybe you can also, you mentioned quite a bit on the Bucillamine. Maybe talk about your recent acquisition of the Psilocybin. What's the potential there for that part?
Right. So obviously right now, as I mentioned, some of our history in terms of our IP portfolio with, we started doing stuff in cannabis, in Bucillamine, we have cannabis, and also obviously a big focus is what we're doing right now with Psilocybin, which Psilocybin has had formulations that developed for breast strips, oral sprays, a number of different products that it wants to take down into formulation, but we basically filed provisional patents around its IP. And we brought in a very big partner, the University of Wisconsin, to help us do a lot of the analysis, clinical work. We've announced that. And obviously to try to move the psilocin initiative down the clinical path. So the University of Wisconsin, with its team there, is going to be a very credible partner. So that acquisition was done back in March. And, that is a big focus right now. The company is really the psilocin acquisition, Psilocybin, and obviously leading right now with the Bucillamine initiative, really to target infectious disease, moving that into the final IND for the phase 3 study. Those are our two major initiatives at the forefront. And, we're focusing right now very aggressively on that.
Yeah, so I saw some of your presentation material. You're also investigating the potential treatment for the liver disease. So can you share a bit about, elaborate a bit on that too?
Right. So as I mentioned, the psilocybin and the Bucillamine are our lead initiatives. The company, as I mentioned, has a lot of IP around cannabis in terms of CBD to treat autoimmune hepatitis, which is a form of liver disease. And that was back in 2017. It did a lot of work with the University of South Carolina, licensing some of that IP. And then the FDA granted the company orphan drug designation for the use of CBD to treat autoimmune hepatitis, a form of liver disease. And it also granted it orphan drug designation for the use of this to treat ischemia, which is basically organ transplantation. So organ drug designation are really markers for people that are afflicted with the disease 200,000 or over. So it is a significant milestone. And we do plan on, moving that more down the clinical path as well. We are, looking at filing INDs there as well, and in an earlier stage, probably move more towards a phase 1 down the road. But the company sort of shifted a bit of precedence there because of the initiatives with Bucillamine and with the psilocybin. So, those are our two major focuses, and we are, still planning to do work with our cannabis portfolio. That will be sort of a bit down the road right now.
Yeah, so you just earlier just mentioned about the orphan drug filing. For some of the audience may not know, maybe you can tell us a bit about the advantages of targeting the orphan drug market.
Right. Sure. I mean, I guess the major thing is, obviously getting credibility for some of the work you're doing. When you do these, there's a lot of programs available by the FDA. Orphan drug designation are for diseases that usually afflict 200,000 people and under, as I mentioned, and our earlier work with basically CBD and some of the university work we did at South Carolina, we then basically took that synopsis to the FDA, and we were granted orphan drug designation. So that's still a substantial milestone, but you have to go down the path, more clinically to do phases, 1, 2, and 3, and thereafter. So we have some very good partners with the university when we're working with CBD and sort of hepatitis, which is a disease that afflicts quite a few people. Liver disease is a very prevalent disease, and there's many areas of it. But this IP we have specifically addresses autoimmune hepatitis. And I mentioned we also have the orphan drug designation for ischemia. But the major, as I said, the major initiative right now is because of our history working with Bucillamine, because the company has patents around the use of Bucillamine to treat gout flares, because the company has done a phase 2 study already in 2016 timeframes, which was basically an FDA phase 2 study. That is quite a substantial milestone. We went back to the FDA now with Bucillamine, with our package to do, to get approval to do a phase 2 study, the early stages of that. And then basically they said, based on your data, based on the safety and efficacy, your work with gout and Bucillamine, we'd like to see your submissions on the IND, which is the package that's sent to the FDA. They would like to see that more at a phase 3 level where, we get more into the synopsis, dosages, and a plan, which they'll look at. And we expect feedback there within the next, by the end of June. Thereafter, we do expect approval to move into phase 3, which is a much bigger study, which is a substantial milestone for the company. There's not many microcap pharma companies that are moving in towards a phase 3 study. So it is a very substantial plateau and milestone for the company.
Yeah, so you just talk about quite a bit of your milestone coming up. So I would just like to conclude asking you the very important question from the investor's point of view. Why should investors consider investing into your company, Revive, right now?
Right. I think that's a very good question. Just to highlight, some of the things I mentioned, I guess it could be broken down. One is Revive has a very strong history working down the clinical path, working with universities, working down the FDA path. So has good expertise, good credibility. Company has a strong, rich IP portfolio in, as I mentioned, in cannabis, but namely in Bucillamine, with the work it's done, and also now with Psilocybin and the acquisition of Psilocin. So the sum of the parts are really, in effect, greater than the whole. The company is got this rich portfolio, and if what we're doing right now with Bucillamine, going towards the phase 3 final approvals, move that study forward, basically submitting our IND, that is a major, major milestone. And from an investor perspective, you could look at some of the comparables in the industry. I don't think that there's many companies around that that can offer this type of rich portfolio of IP combined under one roof, namely, the Psilocybin, the Bucillamine, focused on infectious diseases, and also, as I mentioned, the cannabis. So the sum of the parts are very accretive, and we hope the market will basically recognize that and become our shareholders.
So looks like quite a bit of exciting times ahead of us, Michael. So again, thank you for your time here today with us. And until next time, we shall talk again.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Michael.